I'm Jonathan Rose, CEO of Genesis Gold Group. As Americans, we work hard every day to provide for our families and ensure their future. But with the uncertainty facing our economy, it is more important than ever to safeguard your wealth and protect your retirement savings. Educated investors look to safe haven assets to shield themselves from the economic storm. Tangible assets like gold and silver can provide stability, security, and most importantly, peace of mind. In 1997, the Taxpayer Relief Act allowed Americans to hold physical precious metals like gold and silver in their IRAs for the first time. Today, Genesis Gold Group helps our clients transfer existing IRAs, 401ks, and other retirement accounts into physical gold and silver, tax and penalty free. With thousands of satisfied clients, 5-star reviews, and fully accredited with the Better Business Bureau, our experienced team is here to help you navigate the process. Start to finish, now is the time to educate yourself on the importance of a diversified portfolio, including tangible assets like gold and silver. Call now to receive our free wealth protection kit and digital dollar defense guide. Call now and we'll include our extremely popular silver prepper bar free when you open your account. Add it to your IRA or have it sent to your home. Call Genesis Gold Group today at 800-200-GOLD. Prepper bar only available through Genesis Gold Group.
You're listening to the JD Rucker Show. Let's begin. I remember back in 2017, during the early days, weeks, months of the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, my feeling, it wasn't even, disappointment isn't a strong enough term. I felt in many ways betrayed. You know, I did have concerns going in. As soon as he won, I thought, okay, now our biggest concern is were going to take advantage of the calls for bipartisanship and unity, and they were going to sneak in a bunch of Democrats into the administration. I was wrong. It was far worse than that. We started seeing the uniparty swamp, the greater threat, even worse than the Democrats. As a party, the uniparty swamp is far worse in many ways. We started seeing them insert their people in. We started seeing the deep state inserting its people in. And yes, we even saw the globalist elite cabal inserting their people into the Trump administration. I was very, very concerned. Praise God that Trump himself was very strong. Some people in that administration that were good. Otherwise, it could have been an absolutely horrible 4 years, and obviously led to 8 years. Thankfully, that didn't happen. We did have some good things come out of it, but let's look at some of those picks. I mean, we had the uniparty swamp. We had Reince Priebus, for example, who was a card-carrying member of the uniparty swamp. We had the deep state represented very thoroughly. People like H.R. McMaster involved very heavily in the intelligence side of the administration, and he's as deep state as it gets. We had Rex Tillerson, Secretary of State, the first one, and he is the he is the globalist elite cabal. He is one of the most active members of the globalist elite cabal, at least at the time. Wow, what a rogues gallery of just really bad people. And even compared to some Democrat administrations, obviously we were just coming off the Obama administration, had pure evil in the cabinet. I mean, just as bad as it gets. If you rate that as an F, Trump's administration, his first term, was at best a D-. It might have actually failed. But again, because of Trump's the dude's a fast learner. He picked up on things pretty darn quickly, and praise God for that. Because if he hadn't, he could have been overrun. I mean, he opened the door and the rats started just piling in. Now, I went into this last election, the one, a little over a week ago now, I went into this election very confident, extremely confident, that he had learned from his first administration, and that if he was going to get the blessing, the opportunity to have a second administration, that he would do. My goodness, has he done just that? He is his initial picks so far, I would rate at worst a B plus, and that's with me being Mr. Critical. Oh, I don't know if I want to rate it an A. if you put Truth Serum in me, I'd probably say it's an A minus. Okay, I mean, there are a couple of questionable picks, and we'll get to those. But for the most part, even the surprise picks are surprising in a positive way, and I'm excited. I mean, I have not been this excited and this hopeful. Excited is probably the wrong word. I haven't been this hopeful about the future of this nation since 20. I don't even know. I don't recall the last time I was this jazzed. I mean, I am juiced up. I am pumped up. I am excited and extremely that we have an opportunity here. Now, for those of you who I don't have any, there's no wood around me for me to knock, and I'm not superstitious anyway, so I'm not going to knock on wood, but I think you understand what I'm saying there. We don't want to count our chickens before they hatch, even though we are starting to see some cracks. We already see some chickens starting to pop up, and again, we're just a week in a day or two removed from the amazing election, the most important election of our lifetimes. And I stand by those words, even though I've never said them in the past about other elections. This time, I believe it was, and I believe it is, and I think that we have reason to be very hopeful. But there's a lot of work to be done. Donald Trump, and not just by the Trump administration, and not just by Congress or the Senate. There's a lot of work to be done by a whole lot of us, we the people. I want to take a brief moment, though, to remind everybody of something. And I'll probably, if you watch this show every day, you're going to hear me talk about this probably once or twice a month, maybe even more, because it amazes me. It blows me away. When I think about God's will, when I think about how wrong we are and how right He always is, I would imagine that if you are a Trump supporter, that with a 99.99% certainty, you back in 2020 and 2021 and probably definitely 2022 and 2023, you were thinking to yourself, my goodness, I wish Donald Trump had been allowed to win in 2020. I really wish that he, depending upon your perspective, you are either thinking, I really wish he would have won, or like me, I really wish he hadn't had the election stolen. If we had our will done, then Donald Trump would have won the 2020 election. We wouldn't have had to deal with Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. But here's the thing. If he had won, he would have won without control of Congress. He would not have been able to achieve a mandate and an ability to enact his agenda. That's number one. Number two, Mike Pence would be vice president of the United States currently right now, unless he got himself booted somehow. He would have also been the de facto candidate, but he would have been the front runner to be the 2024 Republican nominee. And he probably would have been going up against Gavin Newsom or somebody like that, and he probably would have. Okay? Again, this is in the scenario where Trump wins or is allowed to win in 2020. We would have had Bill Barr still likely as Attorney General, at least at that point. He probably would have gotten himself fired or quit or whatever between 2021 and now, but he would have been still the Attorney General of the United States. The bad people that were still in the Trump administration, he purged a lot of them, but there were still some horrible, horrible people, including the aforementioned Vice President and Attorney General of the United States. Both of those guys were still in office and would have remained. But that wasn't God's plan. God's plan was not to have Trump sort of limp beyond COVID, limp with the hampering of his first administration. God's plan, as we're seeing unfolding before us, was for us to suffer, was for us to see what would happen if God forbid that it ever happens again, but we did get to taste the last 4 years of utter destruction of the United States of America. They have decimated this nation, they being Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and yes, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. We got to witness it firsthand. We got to live it. And we're paying the price for that. But it's not over yet. We've, I would say the vast majority, we're definitely not out. We can rebound from the last 4 years of debacle. And here's the important part. We can rebound stronger. We already have rejuvenated and jacked up Donald Trump putting together I'll go ahead and say it. As of now, even if everybody else he adds to his administration is mediocre, he's already added enough strength to this administration to make it the strongest. And by strength, I'm not talking about most powerful or authoritarian. I'm saying strongest as far as what we need for each role. To put together the strongest cabinet, with the beginning of a cabinet, and then the rest of his administration, the people that he's putting in place are, for the most part, awesome. There are a couple of question marks, but so far, nothing super ultra glaring, and we'll get to those. But I want you to think about that. What have we learned over the last 4 years? America has learned that the Democrat Party is a disaster. It's not just you and me, Democrats or former Democrats, many independents, perhaps a lot of never-Trump Republicans are starting to realize, holy crap, the Democrats who maybe they thought weren't so bad, or maybe some of them thought the Democrats were good, are now realizing, oh my goodness, their policies are awful. They are way, 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 way too woke, and they are destroying our nation. And we, the people, are suffering as a result. Had Trump won, had our will been done instead of God's will, a majority of the American people would not know how awful Democrats are. What about corporate media, though? Had Trump won, corporate media would have gone on its merry way, would have continued to attack him, would have which is do their self-fulfilling prophecies of, oh, Trump's going to be awful, and look, Trump's awful. Trump does this, Trump does that, and it doesn't matter if he really is awful at this, that, or the other. They're going to claim that he's awful. What their narrative is going to be before they even utter it the first time. If they're starting to ask questions, it's because they think they already know the answer. And even if that answer is wrong, they're still going to say that answer. In other words, we wouldn't have known, we the people, and you and I have known this for years, but other, normies, we'll call them, people that aren't maybe as politically minded, maybe they're not watching a whole lot of CNN or Fox News or MSNBC or ABC or CBS. Maybe they're watching the Kardashians. I don't even know if that's probably not even still a show, is it? Whatever. Yellowstone, I guess. I saw it. I don't watch TV. News or not. Whatever they would be doing their things, those people, they would still think, oh, okay, well, if I need to get my news, I need to go to CNN or Fox News. They wouldn't have been exposed to the reality that media trust is down so low because more people have tuned in, because more people have paid attention. And that would not have happened if we had our will done in 2020 and 2021 if Donald Trump had won. God's will was for Trump to either lose or have it stolen from. Either way, Trump was not going to be allowed to be president against our will, but by his will, we may have dodged a bullet. Because if Trump had won, and if Trump had been allowed to win, and had been president the last 4 years, I believe we'd be better off. Yes, we would probably be in much better shape. But I think we would have been even more divided, and if anything, because of the powers of corporate media, because of the Democrats playing the rhinos and the never-Trumpers and the neocons consolidating power, I think that we would have been on the verge of a massive collapse with President Gavin Newsom starting in 2025, or Gretchen Whitmer, or Michelle Obama, or whoever it is, because we would have thrown out Mike Pence or Ron DeSantis or somebody as our candidate in 2024, because Trump would not have been allowed to run. We would have lost. And then the damage that we have seen in real life the last 4 years would probably have been infinitesimal compared to the massive amounts of damage that the Democrats, whoever they put up there, would have been able to inflict on us. Empowered instead of a weakened media, they would have had an empowered media with a unknowing American people instead of a far more aware American. And of course, they would have almost certainly had full control of the House, full control of the Senate. And when I say full control, I'm saying at this point, they would have been already set and prepared. And again, in the scenario where Trump was allowed to win his second term in 2020, they would be set and ready and prepared to pack the courts. They would have been able to overcome any filibuster or just remove the filibuster altogether. They would have handed Newsom or Whitmer or whoever keys to the castle in a way that is far beyond what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have had the last 4 years. They would have been able to do extensively than what we've seen. So that's just a reminder that our plans suck. God's plans rule. Even when God's plans are horrible, such as allowing the 2020 election to be stolen. That seems like the end of the world for many of us at the time. I didn't think it was the end of the world, but many people were really just terrified, and I can understand why they were. But God's will was for Trump to have the 2020 election stolen, for America to be exposed to the truth about both Democrats as well as corporate media, for Elon Musk because let's face it, have Trump won, chances of Elon Musk owning X right now would have been far, far lower. Maybe not zero. Maybe who knows what would have happened, okay, in that hypothetical. But chance that the reason that he bought X was because he saw what was happening under the Biden-Harris regime. Had it been a Trump administration instead, maybe the playing on Facebook, who knows? Setting up more rockets, I don't know. But God's plan rules. Even when we think it's bad, it always works out for the best. Even if the apocalypse starts tomorrow and there's persecution and tribulation and people are dying, if you're a Bible-believing Christian, you know how the story ends. So no matter how much heartache and pain and suffering we go through, we know that at the very end, we're going to come out on top. Let's take a quick break. I want to go over a lot of these picks. Trump's initial picks. Let's take a quick break. And then when we get, you know what, as a matter of fact, I am going to just push the button and shut up for a minute and a half, 2 minutes. For at least the last, 2 years. Let's see. It might have been as early as 2021, but at the very least in 2022, we started talking about and noticing and talking about all of the crazy things that were happening with this food supply. I'd be like, hey, did you notice that there's been like a sharp increase in food production plants that are just sort of burning up, getting sabotaged, blowing up in some cases? And what about all the chickens that are getting culled? And what about all the cows that are mysteriously dying? It's like somebody's attacking our food. That seemed to be the case, and it has continued to be the case for a long time. This is one of the reasons that the food prices have gone up so much higher, so much faster than other things. Yes, we're experiencing mega inflation, but food is getting it hit hard. This is one of the reasons that we even launched my company in the first place, and we were very happy to have done that. But everything happened, you can only fight off the inevitable for so long, and so we are in the very, very near future, not sure what day or anything like that, but very soon, we are going to have to raise our prices. And so as a result, of this, and I actually have a meeting. I'm not going to say when, but I have a meeting to discuss all of this and how much we're going to raise prices and all that stuff. But in the meantime, as owner of the company, I can still offer what I believe to be a good, awesome deal. So go to worldviewbeef.com, and once you're there, just use promo code JDR. Use promo code JDR to get the maximum discount. As of right now, as I'm recording to this episode, we are at 30%, and we're doing that ahead of the anticipated price hike. So do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, do everybody a favor, and go there now and use promo code JDR. Yeah, I desperately need to update that that ad. The current special with promo code JDR at worldviewbeef.com is actually 35% off. And it's in celebration of this tremendous victory that we and America First Patriots across the country achieved with God's tremendous blessing last Tuesday. So let's hop right into this. Let's get into some of Trump's picks. And to be clear, let's just state right up front who the bad ones are. Okay. I don't think either of these ones are necessarily bad, okay? Rex Tillerson was bad, okay? H.R. McMaster was horrible, okay? But that was in I can go down a list of people. Don't even get me started on Jeff Sessions, who picking Jeff Sessions was the first domino in that it spiraled. Just don't even get me started. But now we have, again, questionable picks. They're not even bad, necessarily. They're questionable. Let's start with Kristi Noem. Kristi Noem, and to be clear, hers isn't necessarily questionable as much as it is a head scratcher. Had you asked me who would be the top 20 possible secretaries of DHS, secretaries of the Department of Homeland Security, I was about to say Human Services, Department of Homeland Security, if you told me to pick out 20 people and give me a full day to research it and figure it out and try to Kristi Noem would not have been on my list. Okay? I have never seen her as even remotely possibly somebody who could be charged with overseeing the security of the United States of America here in the homeland, securing the border. Chief responsibility falls on the Department of Homeland Security and, of course, the Secretary of DHS. Having Kristi Noem, who is currently the governor of South Dakota, she was near the top of the list, at least maybe even at the top of the list at one point, to be Trump's VP nominee, to be his running mate. And that was not confirmed. Trump did do, the reason that I thought that she was at the top of the list is because Trump did, when she officially came out to endorse him, they actually had a sign that was approved by Trump, by the campaign at least, a couple of signs, huge signs in the background that showed Trump Noem 2024. These were, you could have literally taken those and turned those into yard signs for a Trump Noem ticket. And I thought, my gosh, they're really, this is a test balloon all day. They're seeing the optics, they're seeing how it fits, how do they look together? She is an attractive woman, but is she too small? Is she too, how did it work? I think that there's a good chance, 30, 40, maybe 50% chance that she would have been his running mate had it not been for her stupid book that came out saying, yeah, some dogs. Now, of course, I read the story. It's like, that's a normal action for a red-blooded American. If you've got animals that are dangerous, the animals that could be, that are disobedient. Maybe we're not going to go over a hill and with a shotgun, but a lot of people will have animals put down. I'm not endorsing it or anything. It just didn't shock me. It's not like, oh my gosh, she can't she's just super evil. I thought she was dumb. That was my bigger concern. It's like, why would you put that in there? Okay, have we not learned anything from Mitt Romney putting his dog on the roof of his car? You want to get people on both sides of the aisle upset. Say that you did something, even if you felt justified in doing it. Say that you did something bad to animals. That's all. You're done. But apparently she's not done, at least not with politics. Now she's getting into going from elected office, which she was in Congress, okay, and she has been governor. Now she's moving to head up the Department of Homeland Security. You got me. I mean, that one blew me away. But we'll see. I'm willing to give her a chance because she is, number one, she is very intelligent. Okay, she's very talented, and to some extent, even though she's way up in South Dakota, it's not like she's like on a border state. At least she's close to the northern border, I suppose. But she's not by the southern border. But she has expressed an understanding of the dangers of the illegal alien invasion, the border crisis. So we'll see. Again, it's questionable. It's sort of it's a wild card. I didn't expect it. Didn't see it coming. And when that came across, I had to double check to make sure that it was real. Wait on Trump's Truth Social to see if he was actually going to announce it. And he did. He did. So yes, Kristi Noem, Department of Homeland Security. The other one and this is not necessarily a reflection on whether or not he'll do a good job, but I don't like Marco Rubio. Okay, I think he's a neocon. I think that he is in many ways a warmonger, and having him allegedly, I don't know, has Trump officially selected him yet? I haven't. The rumors were out, and they're very credible rumors. Some reports close, yada yada yada. A lot of people are already talking, and maybe he did announce it, but let's just assume that Marco Rubio is going to be the Secretary of State. That one, to me, on a personal level, again, not necessarily as a political analyst, but personally, I hate the pick. But I mean, number one, very few people, if anyone, in the Senate knows more about foreign relations than Marco Rubio. He has studied. Okay, he has led the intelligence the Intelligence Committee. So he's seen a lot of things that other senators, even other members of Congress, he's seen things that perhaps even Donald Trump has yet to see. He knows things that are happening in the world. So I don't question his knowledge. And I don't question his skill. He is a very skilled, if anything, I would argue that he's more suited to be a bureaucrat than a legislator. I would make that argument all day. I mean, how many things, what legislation is Marco Rubio known for? We have to go all the way back to the Gang of Eight and pushing, he was suckered into being the poster boy for amnesty. Like that's his signature piece of legislation that, praise God, didn't pass, right? So yeah, maybe he will do a great job. I don't know, and I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. But he is in many ways a warmonger, which is not a good trait for a Secretary of State, not in the Trump administration. So I'm gonna put that one as a question mark. So I'm gonna put the Noam. Put her selection, her appointment, as about a C+, only because of the question marks. And I'm going to put Marco Rubio as a C-. And we'll see. There's a chance that both of them have great upside potential. They both could prove me wrong, and I pray to God they do. I hope that they're both astounding. But there's also the potential that they could both really screw it up bad. Not gonna lie, that is another one. Son of a gun, we're coming up on a break. Get into the other picks. I'm gonna play this real quick, and I find it humorous that when you see corporate media shills, corporate media propagandists out there pretending to take the high ground, especially against something like X, which, to me, you can say what you will about Elon Musk. I've said some bad things myself over the years. But when it comes to freer speech X seems to be the place where you get the best as far as the major social media sites. You got Gab, you've got Pickaxe, you've got several out there that are better than X as far as free speech. But as far as the majors, Facebook, Instagram, yada yada yada, X is shoulders above the rest. But Don Lemon doesn't care.
Hi everyone. I have loved connecting with all of you on Twitter and then on X for all of these years. But it's time for me to leave the platform. I once believed that it was a place for honest debate and discussion, transparency and free speech. But I now feel it does not serve that purpose. In addition, starting this Friday, November 15th, X is implementing new terms of service, which among other things states that, quote, all disputes be brought exclusively in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas or state courts located in Tarrant County, Texas, end quote. The full terms of service can be found on my written statement or on the X website. Now, as the Washington Post recently reported on X's decision to change the terms, this, quote, ensures that such lawsuits will be heard in courthouses that are a hub for conservatives, which experts say could make it easier for X to shield itself from litigation and punish critics. I think that speaks for itself. You can find me on YouTube at The Don Lemon Show, or on TikTok and Facebook at Don Lemon, and on Instagram and Blue Sky at Don Lemon Official. I hope you will join me there. Thanks.
There are journalists that I despise. Don Lemon is somebody that I just pity. I just pity that guy. He's just a loser. Sorry, Don. You're just a loser. Let's take a quick break. If you want to catch the rest of the show from another network, go to jdrucker.com/rumble. After Trump was elected president, I received a couple of communications from people. One via phone, text, and the other one via Twitter, X, direct message. People asking me, "Hey, now that Trump's back in office, is the economy going to get better?" And I said, "Yeah, in some ways it definitely will. Obviously, I mean, just Trump's presence alone will have a dramatic impact on the economy, and it will take things to the next level." But with that said, the threats still remain. Trump, Harris, didn't matter. They're still pushing, they being the powers that be, are still pushing for central bank digital currencies. They're still pushing for de-dollarization and the rise of BRICS. They're still pushing for the advancement of a worldwide economy. And while Trump will do everything in his power to prevent that, to at least slow it down, some of it is not within even the power of the United States of America itself. And this is why there is no reason, and you can see by the gold prices, there is no reason to doubt physical precious metals as a proper way to hedge against what is coming. Because it's still coming. There were certain scenarios that would have happened if Kamala Harris had won, and there are certain scenarios that will happen now that President Trump has won. And those scenarios still point in the same exact direction. That's the reason why even central banks are still buying up as much gold and silver as possible. That's why banks, financial institutions are recommending to their people, buy as much gold and silver as possible. I work with a faith-driven gold company. There are a lot of gold companies out there that get recommended by hosts. The one that I like happens to be driven by faith, and they actually do a tremendous job versus the competition. You can check out Genesis Gold Group by going to rumblegold.com. That's rumblegold.com, or read my testimony over at jdrucker.com/gold. I've told myself to be a lot more positive, and not just me, you guys have told me the same thing. I need to be a lot more positive with this show when things are positive. I will have a hard time, though, being positive when absolute anti-American, anti-MAGA, anti-Trump people such as John Thune are elected as Senate Majority Leader. The secret ballot came back today, and as a lot of us expected, I didn't want to voice it, but I did have the expectation that Mitch McConnell's hand-tailored, hand-groomed boy, John Thune, was going to win. And, of course, it did happen, and it's unfortunate, it's sad, it's destructive. But now it's up to us. We can't focus. I could sit here and just rip on him all day, go over his conservative scores, which are abysmal, anti-Trump sentiment that he's been voicing since 2016, and he's never stopped, I could start to really attack this guy. But there's no point because he is who he is. If you don't know him already, you're going to get to learn to know him. He is Mitch McConnell 2.0, and if anything, he's worse than McConnell because, yes, is he compromised like McConnell? You betcha. But he's worse because he has all of his mental acuity in place. Some would argue that many, if not most, if not all of McConnell's moves over the last several years have been actually John Thune. You ever see when the guy, if you're not familiar with him, McConnell will be there at the podium and he'll be like talking, and he'll have one of his incidences where he just freezes, he McConnell's, as they now call it. He glitches, glitchy Mitchy. The guy that steps in to continue, that's always John Thune. John Thune has been, in many ways, some people thought he was being groomed by McConnell. I would argue that he's been controlling McConnell for a long time. That he has been the puppet master making McConnell's lips move and say certain things. I'm not saying that he's the reason that McConnell's compromised. Party, the Uniparty swamped the deep state and the globalist elite cabal to find all of Mitch McConnell's various puppet masters, very much including Big Pharma, who pays Mitch McConnell, or paid Mitch McConnell more than any other person in Washington, D.C. No, that's who John Thune is now, and he is Senate Majority Leader, and that sucks. But now our role, our way that we can fight back, we can't get him replaced, not anytime soon. Which means that we still have to try to get as many Republicans in line with what we want them to do in the Senate as possible, because John Thune's not going to be the guy that's pushing the MAGA movement. He's not going to be pushing Agenda 47. If anything, he's going to be trying to slow Trump down on behalf of the Uniparty swamp. Okay, sorry. See, and this is why everybody writes me. They go to jdrucker.com/talk, jdrucker.com/talk, and they say, hey man, tone it down a bit. You get a little bit angry, especially when you talk about rhinos and the Uniparty swamp and the deep state and the start to spit. Take it easy. That's what you guys will be sending me, and I'm taking the advice. So we're going to stop talking about John Thune. We're going to move on to the cabinet, but I just had to throw that out there, and I'm gonna take a drink. So let's throw in a swoosh. All right, that was a good drink. Had me a good drink. So it was just coffee. Don't worry. Didn't start drinking for the sake of John Thune. He's not worth that much of my time. We'll still get what we need done in spite of the rhinos. Move on, Rucker. Move on. All right, let's get to some positive stuff. All right, there are positive things that are happening in our world, and the vast majority of them, at least from a political perspective, are coming from the Trump team. So let's go up and down the list. These are we've covered the two questionable selections so far. Let's talk about the ones that are, and this is in no particular order. Okay, so this is just I'm following a list here of the people that we're going to be talking about, including Susie Wild, the new White House Chief of Staff. She has been a longtime ally of President Trump. She's been working with him on his campaigns ever since 2016. She is one of the good guys. Now, I can't say that on a personal basis. I don't know enough about her, and I don't think a whole lot of people know enough about her, except for apparently Donald Trump and his campaign, because they loved her. She was the co-chair. She really helped to drive the Trump campaign in many ways. And now she's being charged with driving the additions of various people. Now, look, if he had picked her and then I don't know, somebody like Bill Barr had been thrown in as Attorney General, and somebody like Rex Tillerson had been thrown in as Secretary of State, if we started seeing the cabinet and the various appointments, if we started seeing a bunch of rhinos, neocons, and global there, like we did when Reince Priebus was the first chief of staff for Trump during the transition period, then I would be against Susie Wiles. I would be pointing my finger at her and saying she's another Reince Priebus. She's not, because she's helping to pick some good people. Now, we do know that it's not just her. We do know that based upon what he said himself, that Donald Trump Jr. is involved in this particular role. I think a lot of people thought that Donald Trump Jr. would be playing a major role in the administration. I think a lot of people thought that the first time, and he didn't. First Trump administration, Donald Trump Jr. really wasn't there. And so for the second administration, people have asked, what is his role going to be? I think he seems to be, and I don't know if this is, I wouldn't put this as a certainty, but I'd put it over 50% chance that he does have some sort of political ambitions for the future. And that being the case, I think a lot more people, including me, were thinking he's going to play a bigger role in this second term. And apparently, from what we've been told by him, his main role is just to make sure that the mistakes from the first administration, second time around, his main goal is to work with Susie Wiles to make sure that we get good people in place. And if he is, as he said he was going to be, if he is regard, then he's doing a bang-up job, and so is Susie Wiles. So I'm going to rate her as an A-. Again, with some upside there. Because Chief of Staff, for those who don't realize, Chief of Staff is arguably the second most powerful person in the White House, more powerful than the Vice President in many ways, depending upon the administration and depending upon the Chief of Staff. Sometimes they're kind of nerfed. Sometimes they're given the keys to the castle, right? And because it's not a cabinet position. I think people don't understand that or don't realize that it's not a cabinet position. That it is a role that was created after the fact. It's sort of like, hey, let's have a chief of staff. It's almost like an office manager, right? That was the initial idea, but then it started working its way up. And when presidents started realizing they could put their most trusted allies without any pushback from Congress, they can just put them in as a non-House chief of staff, then it started rising in its power. That position has become more and more powerful over the years, to the point that many, many, many decisions are made, including make the decisions. In other words, like at the very least, the chief of staff is the gatekeeper, the person who will tell this secretary or that administrator or this general or that person, this governor, whoever, this senator, whether they can even speak to the president at that given moment. So yes, so that role is extremely important, and I would give Susie Wiles the A-, which is a very good sign. We've already done Marco Rubio. All right, Elise Stefanik. I've heard a lot of pushback on this one, and I get it. Okay, I get it. She's not like super ultra mega conservative. She's powerful. She's demonstrated that even in her youth that she is very capable of handling the role of leadership, not just leadership as a representative, but leadership amongst representatives. She is a leader amongst Republicans in Congress. Now, people are pushing back. She's not, she's a New York conservative, which is to say, if she were in Oklahoma, she would be kind of middle of the road, right? Maybe even a little bit left-leaning compared to an Oklahoma Republican or a Utah Republican. But as a New York Republican, she's very conservative. But here's the thing. She's been assigned the role, appointed the role as U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations, which, for those who maybe need a refresher or a reminder, that's what Nikki Haley was in the beginning, right? Okay, all right. So is she another Nikki Haley? A lot of people have been making that parallel, okay? It's like she's the next Nikki Haley. She's going to turn on. No, she won't. The reason that she's in this role is because she has been loyal to Trump the entire time, okay? Nikki Haley people forget, Nikki Haley didn't even endorse Trump, okay? She endorsed Ted Cruz in 2016 for the primary. Very similar to Mike Pence. Okay, well, I think we're seeing a trend here, right? A lot of the people that jumped on the Trump train late, as far as politicians, they were the first to jump right off in the 2020 election. They were the first ones, like John Thune, for example, who were like, oh, you know what? We need to accept the results of the 2020 election. It wasn't stolen. January 6th was abysmal, and Trump should probably go. Elise Stefanik is not one of those people. She has been loyal from the beginning of her career. She has maintained that loyalty, and that's the most important part. There's only two things that the ambassador to the United Nations needs to be. Number one, they have to be strong because they are representing us to the world at the United Nations. So it has to be a strong person. Stefanik qualifies there. And number two, they have to be loyal. That's it. Okay, she's not going to be making policy. She's not going to be sitting there saying, "Okay, Iran, here's what's going to happen because I say so." No, she's going to be, well, the Trump administration believes this. The Trump administration believes that. The Trump administration is offering this. She's a messenger, and I'm not trying to downplay the role. Okay, it's because she's just a messenger. Well, she's a messenger to world leaders and to her counterparts. So it is. I don't think that I'm downplaying it when I say she's a messenger, but she doesn't have. The ambassadors don't set policies. They represent the policies being set from the White House. That's it. And so anybody who has, I don't think you're picturing it right now. If she were Secretary of State, like Marco Rubio, I would have the same concerns about her as I have about Rubio. Maybe not quite as much, because Rubio's been very loyal to Trump, by the way. Ever since after the 2016 election, after he lost, I mean, he jumped right on board. And he stayed on board. That's there's one good thing about Rubio. He ran against Trump, he lost, and then he jumped on the Trump train and stayed there. So, but yeah, so if Stefanik were to be made Secretary of State, I'd be more concerned about her policies because she'd be leading it's not just a representative of the United Nations. That role is really about setting policies for foreign relations and for doing stuff outside of the direct appeal or the direct guidance from the president. I'm not saying the president doesn't get involved, but most of the heavy lifting is done by the, and therefore, whoever is in charge of the State Department has a lot of responsibility and does make a lot of decisions. Ambassador to the United Nations does not. They just have to be a good representative. Great there. I'm going to give her an A on that one, even though, again, not for her policies. I disagree with a lot of her politics. But as far as for this role, A, far better than Nikki Haley. All right, let's get to Tom Homan, the border czar. Let's see, who is the border czar today? If we look it up, who is the border czar under Joe Biden? If we look that up on Google, it'll probably say that it's a right-wing conspiracy theory that Kamala Harris is the border czar. Now that's going to be changed in the future. It will be, especially once they start attacking Homan, once he really gets going. Tom Homan, by the way, is the border czar. Once they start attacking him, they'll be comparing him to the kinder and gentler way of former border czar and Vice President Kamala Harris. But during the campaign, it's like, shoot, that's a conspiracy theory. She was never in charge of the border. She was never border czar. And then, you look back and, okay, PBS, I know you're saying she's not the border czar, but according to this article that you guys wrote last year on PBS, you said that she's the border czar. They're like, blah, 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 blah. Easy sometimes going after corporate media. But anyway, so there will be some comparisons. But she is currently the border czar, hasn't taken that role, has not changed, and now she's being replaced by Tom Homan, the former acting ICE director under Donald Trump, and arguably the most based individual in Washington, D.C. And when I say based, what I mean is he says what he means. He means what he says, and he doesn't care what you or I or anybody else thinks about it. He just goes. He's on a mission, and he has been on this mission for 4 decades. This mission is to make sure that the United States of America is safe. There is not a single person that I could possibly think of that I would rather have in the role of border czar. As a matter of fact, if he had been declared the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, I would have been ecstatic. And if he would have been placed as ICE director, ecstatic. Now that he's placed as border czar, I'm perhaps more ecstatic because we don't know exactly what that means. I mean, is he going to have power over, for example, Kristi Noem? It's an ambiguous, it's an extra constitutional position, and really, assuming that he reports directly to the president, which he will, it's possible that he could be setting more of our deportation and border security policies than even Kristi Noem or whoever the ICE director is or whoever runs Customs and Border Protection. he really might be the guy, and that's awesome. So yeah, I'm going to put Tom Homan's selection or appointment, as borders are, we're giving that one an A+. And if I could add more pluses to the end of that, I totally would, because the dude's a stallion, an absolute stallion. He's a stud. I love him. All right, let's get to another one that I love. You can put this one down as a question mark. I'm not going to, and I'll explain. But Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. I'm laughing not because of him. I'm laughing because of the reaction to him. Oh my gosh. On the same day appointed as the Doge Doge director, Pete Hegseth actually stole the headlines. Because just like with Kristi Noem, I would say even more so than Kristi Noem, Pete's name had not been on my radar, and as far as I know, on anybody's radar. There might have been somebody who had some inside information. You know, I don't watch all the shows out there, but if you'd given me a week and a team of 5, and we were going to come up with who the most likely top 30 people, top 40 people, top 50, maybe top 100, if you said come up with that's overkill. Let's say you gave us a week, a team of 5 military and even Trump experts, Republican experts, conservative experts, whatever. And we sat there in a room for 12 hours a day to try to go over and anticipate and read this. Who is Trump going to make his secretary, defense secretary? We would not have come up with Fox News host Pete Hegseth. By golly, does it make sense? Because I think, and something that people have to understand about the how the Defense Department works, how the military works, and often in not the same thing, okay? How the Pentagon operates, and civilian oversight of the military. Once you start understanding that it's not like Pete Hegseth is going to have access to, he's not going to be sitting there saying, okay, bomb Iran. It's not his call. That's not what the defense secretary does. They're really more about guidance of philosophy. So you want somebody in there, stay with me on this, you want somebody in there who's going to say, for example, you have a military that's woke. And it's not just less woke. We can't have a military that's woke at all. Like, every single ounce of wokeness has to be drained out of our military. Because it looks like there's at least a good chance that we're going to be in direct military conflicts at some point in the very near future. Could be next week, could be next month, probably not. Could be next year, maybe. Could be the year after that. Now we're getting into some grayer areas, because it seems as if the United States of America and our allies are on a collision course. And it's like, oh, but Trump will never get into a war. Folks, sometimes we don't get to decide which war we get sucked into. Okay, I know we did with Vietnam. I know we did with Korea. But did we really get sucked into World War II? And some would argue, yes, of course, because don't get me started on Pearl Harbor conspiracy theories, because they're almost certainly true, right? Technically speaking, we probably did get sucked in. But anyway, point being, bring it back in. We might not have a choice, is the point. And so you want to make sure that you want your defense is guiding the military from a philosophical perspective, more so than anything else, and a budget. I mean, there's day-to-day stuff for sure, budgetary concerns and all that stuff. Where do we prioritize budgets? Where, are we going to be focused more on Space Force or Air Force or Navy or a nice mix or whatever? How do we bump up recruitment for Marines? How do we do, those are the things. They're not sitting there, Pete Hegseth or any Secretary of Defense is not sitting there like I think we picture like this map, we've got like this risk style map and it's projected down, and they're like moving little pieces around, and it's like, how do we beat Napoleon? I don't know what people think, but that's not the case. Okay, the defense secretary does not have access to the military or to the nuclear codes. Okay, that's not what they do. That's not what they do. So we need somebody who's going to take us out of the military. That's the primary concern. And understanding that, all of a sudden, it's kind of like, duh, me and the 5 experts out there who didn't think of Pete Hegseth, we see it and we're like, of course, that makes a lot more sense. Here's a brief clip on what Pete Hegseth thinks about women in the military.
Up just saying we should not have women in combat roles. It hasn't made us more effective, hasn't made us more lethal, has made fighting more complicated. We've all served with women, and they're great. It just, our institutions don't have to incentivize that in places where not traditionally, over human history, men in those positions are more capable.
My mom retired as an Army captain. Okay, she was a nurse practitioner in the United States Army. Served proudly, and I'm so proud of her for her service. And she went to South Korea. Okay, she went to Germany. She was stationed in Europe for a while. At no point was there a concern that she would face combat, because that wasn't her role. She played an extremely important role in the United States Army. It's crucial. Okay, we need our trained ones, right? Doctors, nurse practitioners, nurses. We need these people. But we don't. My mom, who happened to be 4'9", she's a tough lady, but I wouldn't want her on the battlefield. And not just because she's my mom. I wouldn't want her on the battlefield if she was anybody's mom or sister or daughter. It's just not, war. There's a difference between military and war. Women in the military, fine. Women at war, only as a last resort. Seriously. People are, well, what about Israel? The IDF. Folks, that's a different situation. Okay? Totally different situation. We have men here. Believe it or not, I know if you live in California on the streets and you might think to yourself, there's no men here. Am I the only man walking around here? But there are men in the United States of America. We need to give them a reason to want to serve. The reason the recruitment is down is not because of some lack of anything. It's because of idiocy coming from the Pentagon, idiocy coming from the Defense Department, idiocy coming from our own military leaders who believe that, and maybe they don't believe this, but at least they're portraying that they believe that diversity, equity, and inclusion is somehow important for the military. It is not. Okay? It is not. A man is a man, and if that man wants to fight in the U.S. military, and they have the skills and the mindset and everything else, doesn't matter. I don't care if they are black, white, Hispanic, Asian, as long as they want to serve the nation in a combat role. Sign them up. Marines are over there. Army's over there. You like the water? Great. Here's the Navy. Oh, female. You want to be in the military? Awesome. We have some amazing roles for you. Crucial roles. Roles that will make sure that the men that are in combat are properly supported. You will be able to, in many ways, save their lives. You will make them more effective by doing this or this or this or this. And then, don't even get me started. I can start. You guys want me to start? I'll start on transgenders. Nah, I won't. Let's take a short break. Before I get in trouble. Let's take a short break. When we get back, we'll get some more of these awesome, amazing Trump picks.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving us with a ton of extra MyPillows. But you know what? That's their loss. I'm going to make it your gain. For the first time ever, you get standard classic MyPillows for wholesale prices, only $14.88. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, I'm going to offer my entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Upgrade to a queen-size MyPillow for just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.88. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size MyPillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.
So before we get to the rest of the list of amazing and awesome and just totally cool picks by President Trump for his team, we've already covered the bad ones, the questionable ones. We've covered some of the good ones, but I want to go back to one that I already covered. I want to go back to Tom Homan simply because there was a video. I just forgot to play it when I was talking about him. I got so excited talking about the stud that is Tom Homan that I forgot to show him being a stud. Watch.
Run it again. And we know what happens to these children, Sean. And look, the illegal aliens coming across the border, people need to understand, 31% of women that make that journey get raped by criminal cartels. Children get raped. I've talked to little girls as young as 9 that have been raped multiple times. These cartels are animals, and that's why President Trump's going to take them off the face of the earth. They have killed more Americans than every terrorist organization in the world. And President Trump is committed to calling them terrorist organization and using the full might of the United States Special Operations to take them out.
Man, if you... No offense to anybody who might take offense from this, but if that's not the guy that you want defending our border, then you're either dumb or a Democrat or both. Or just a dumb Democrat. Oxymoron, I know. So let's keep going. Keep going down this list. We got Mike Waltz, Congressman, Representative Mike Waltz from Florida, who is he's getting some criticism. I'll admit, some criticism from people like Ron Paul, and I get it. I mean, I understand. He is a little bit, he's not a non-interventionalist, but he does seem to be an America First guy. And one of the things that I do like that very much is that he is very skeptical. That's the word that they're using in corporate media right now, but he's skeptical of the money that we're giving to Ukraine. He wants to cut it off, and they have him tagged to be the National Security Advisor, which I think fits his role very nicely. His focus throughout his congressional career, well, at least the last couple of years, I shouldn't say throughout, but for a while now, he has been very focused on China. Now, as anybody who's watched this show knows, I do consider China to be our greatest foreign threat, bigger than Russia, bigger than any European nations, bigger than Iran, bigger than North Korea. China is the one that concerns me the most, and it's not just from a military perspective. They are trying to destroy us in any way they can, because from their perspective, their economy is tanking, so they need our economy to tank simultaneously to keep theirs propped up. It's a very ugly scenario that could unfold if the Chinese Communist Party and Xi Jinping get too desperate, which could happen really at any point. Forget about it. I mean, let's take out Taiwan and, technically speaking, also the Philippines. Let's take those out of the equation. Even without the conflicts in the South China Sea, China represents a tremendous threat to us, which is why you want somebody from a national security perspective. You need somebody who's going to treat China as an enemy, because they are. Whether we want to admit it, whether corporate media wants to admit it, whether the uniparty swamp wants to admit it or not, they're not our friends. They're not neutral. They hate us. They want to destroy us. They're working very closely with the globalist elite cabal. I do believe they're separate, by the way. To be clear, I do think that just as the United States as a whole is separate from the globalist elite cabal, we do have many leaders who are participants We have many business leaders who are participants. We have many people in government who are participants in the globalist elite cabal. But as a nation, we are opposed to them, just as China. China is opposed to the globalist elite cabal, but they can work together with the common goal of taking us down a notch or 2 or 10, which is what they want to do. The Chinese Communist Party wants to do that. The globalist elite cabal wants to do that. They have different reasons for wanting to do it, but they are unified in that being their end goal. So I would give Mike Walls, we'll give him a B+. Yeah, he's a B+. Potential for slightly higher. Also, there's a risk there because, again, he's not, he's not like a war hawk per se, but he's an interventionist to some extent. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Former Green Beret, which, very awesome. That aspect of it, his time that he spent in Afghanistan and throughout the Middle East, from that perspective, I absolutely adore him. William McGinley, White House counsel. When it comes to roles in the White House, I've already mentioned that the Chief of Staff, as a non-cabinet role, is still extremely important, arguably the most important. Very close up there as far as doesn't get nearly as much attention because it all happens behind the scenes, but the people that you really have to pay attention to as far as setting policies the appropriate way is the White House counsel. These are the people who are, every executive order has to go through them. Every decision by the White House, by the president, has to be filtered through them. They have to put their finishing touches on everything, and sometimes those finishing touches can be good, sometimes they can be bad. But basically, they're in charge of determining what a president and an administration is allowed to do. They're supposed to decipher this policy's chances of, for example, can we put this in there? If it does get put in there, what's going to happen between us signing this executive order and what's going to happen to it in the courts? How are legislators going to react to it? How are the states going to react to it? And most importantly, can this get us into any trouble? Okay, it doesn't sound. It's not exactly like, oh my gosh, it's like the State Department or the Department of Homeland Security or the Defense Department. It's not as pretty as that, and it's not as high profile as the Justice Department either. But as far as who actually puts their fingerprints on important decisions, such as executive orders, White House counsel. So having William McGinley in there is important. Not only is the dude wicked smart, but he's also extraordinarily loyal to Donald Trump, and then you definitely want that. You don't want... is there anything worse than a lawyer? Yes, a backstabbing lawyer. And you don't want any of those, and William McGinley is not one of those. We talked about Kristi Noem, CIA Director John Ratcliffe. Look, I'm not going to lie. Oh, and by the way, we'll give A, just a flat out A to McGinley. John Ratcliffe as CIA Director. I'm going to go ahead and put this as a B. That's not a reflection on Ratcliffe himself. He was very good. When he was DNI, Director of National Intelligence, he did a fine job. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, that was incredible, but there's not a whole lot of incredible that can be done. Here's the thing. If you're a really, really, really good DNI, nobody's ever going to know about it. It's only if you're a bad DNI that, the things happen, terrorist attacks happen or anything like that. Now all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, why did the intelligence community not tell us about this to begin with? How are we hacked? Why is this happening? Why is that happening? If you don't hear any news from an intelligence perspective, that's because you got a good DNI in place. Okay, so he did a fine job there. Now, putting him over to CIA makes a lot of sense. It's almost unfair for me to give him just a B. But I was really hoping that they would pick Kash Patel. I really was. I wanted Kash to go in there and say, all right, here's the Epstein list, and here's the Diddy list, and here's the RFK documents, and just lay it all out there, Kash. Declassify everything. And I was really hopeful that he would do that. I don't think that John Ratcliffe is going to do that. We'll see. He won't, but he'll be fine. He'll be fine. Lee Zeldin, one of my favorite guys, somebody that I really did think if there was a chance for there to be a Republican governor in the state of New York, I thought it could be Lee Zeldin. And up until the point where Laura Trump really and Michael Whatley took over the DNC, Lee Zeldin was my choice. I wanted him, or DNC. Oh, sorry. Whoa, Rucker. Before they took over the RNC, Lee Zeldin was the guy that I wanted. I get a lot of people like Harmeet Dillon, and I know my good buddy Mike Lindell, he wanted the position. Lee Zeldin was the guy that I thought, here's somebody who really could, from a strategic perspective, he could get in there and help us to win. Now, as it turned out, it was a blessing for everybody that he decided not to run to become the RNC chair, because like I said, we got Whatley, we got Laura Trump, and we won. Okay, well, I mean, could he have done better? Who cares? We got what we wanted out of the RNC. We've got good people there for now, and we'll take it. We'll take it. So now it looks like it worked out very well for him too, because as the EPA administrator, here's a guy that can actually get us back to where we were before with Trump in his first term, back to a state of energy independence. I mean, I don't think anybody understands how bad off we are from an energy perspective. We've been depleted so far down just with our strategic petroleum reserves. Not to mention everything else that has happened as a result of. They use the EPA as the ultimate scapegoat, just as they use climate change in general as the ultimate skeleton key to unlock whatever doors they want. The EPA is the hammer that has been used by the Biden administration as well as the Obama administration to curtail any efforts that we might have had to do, well, anything. It's like, oh, we don't really want that pipeline. Send the EPA in. They'll shut it down. Having Lee Zeldin in there to basically pull back the reins on the environmental gatekeepers, and hopefully we'll see. I would love for him to be the wind down administrator. In other words, hey, the EPA is going away. EPA is going away. And hopefully Lee Zeldin will do that, and hopefully he will be able to sing better than I can. Here's Lee Zeldin talking about energy independence.
One of the biggest issues for so many Americans was the economy, and the president was talking about unleashing economic prosperity. Through the EPA, we have the ability to pursue energy dominance, to be able to make the United States the artificial intelligence capital of the world, to bring back American jobs to the auto industry, and so much more.
As with so many of these roles, the administrator of the Environmental Protection Agency must be a direct reflection of the president's policies. They do them just by the sheer size of the U.S. government, which can be reduced, in my humble opinion, by at least 95%. If you really wanted to set things right, that's the way you do it. It's not going to happen anytime soon. So maybe someday we'll be able to get a true limited government, constitutional, conservative, populist, whatever, into the White House. Trump's not that guy. Trump's not the guy that's going to take the government down by 95%. And nor should he necessarily be, because we kind of got to fix things first before we do that. That's a debate for another day, and we'll take what we can get, and I don't want to be trapped in the pipe dream of we can do it, we can cut everything, and they're like, okay, well, nobody will ever let you do that. You'd have to be king, Rucker, and nobody wants Rucker the king. Rucker doesn't want Rucker the king. But with that said, the EPA administrator has to be able to reflect the environmental policies, the climate change perspectives of the president. So what are Donald Trump's perspectives on the climate? Let's see.
When I hear these poor fools talking about global warming, they don't call it that anymore. They call it climate change because, some parts of the planet are cooling and warming. It didn't work. So they finally got it right. They just call it climate change. They used to call it global warming. Years ago, they used to call it global cooling. In the 1920s, they thought the planet was going to freeze. Now they think the planet's going to burn up. And we're still waiting for the 12 years. We're down almost to the end of the 12-year period. You understand that, where these lunatics that know nothing, they said, we have 12 years to live. And people didn't have babies because they said, we only have another. No, it's so crazy. But the problem isn't the fact that the oceans in 500 years will raise a quarter of an inch. The problem is nuclear weapons. It's nuclear warming. And these poor fools talk about global warming all the time. The planet's going to global warm to a point where the oceans will rise an eighth of an inch in 355 years. They have no idea what's going to happen to weather. And in the meantime, we're spending our wealth on this foolish stuff. The wind doesn't work. It's very expensive, kills the birds, destroys everything around it. It's very, 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 very bad. It's the most expensive energy, wind. And then every 9 years, you have to replace the turbines. They're made out of steel and they wear out. But we will create tremendous electricity for our country.
Well, there you have it. I am not personally waiting for the climate apocalypse to happen, because it's not happening. Nor it didn't happen in the 70s when they said it was going to happen. Didn't happen in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s. Is it going to happen in the 2020s? No, it's not. It's all just a scheme concocted by the Club of Rome and amongst others, including Klaus Schwab and Henry Kissinger, who figured, hey, climate change. Or at the time, global warming, global cooling, global change of the climate change. There we go. Whatever they can use as a untestable boogeyman. Okay? People will often say, I believe in climate change because I trust the science. Do you trust the science? Or do you trust the paid scientists, the political scientists, which is what they are? So many of them. Do you trust them? Do you trust the narrative of the science? Because the science itself does not point to man-made climate change destroying the planet, no matter who's saying it. I don't care if it's Al Gore or Greta Thunberg or Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Kamala Harris or whoever. It doesn't matter. They'll just keep, every couple of years, they'll roll out somebody else who's going to be the poster child for climate change. And hopefully, Lord willing, we'll be able to keep fighting it back, because they're not going to stop, okay? If we don't change now, then the world's doomed in 9 years, 10 years, 12 years, 8 years, 7 years, 12 years, whatever. All they have to do is keep kicking the climate change can down the road. It doesn't matter if they're repeating the same thing they've said for 50 years, that the world's going to end in 10. For 5 decades, they've said it, and we're still here. Don't get me started. Let's go to Israel. So this was I would say, perhaps the most apropos pick. Generally speaking, when we're picking the U.S. ambassador to the nation of Israel, presidents, for the most part, pick Jews. Makes sense, huh? It's like, hey, I'm a Jew, you guys are Jews, let's talk, right? It's been the standard operating procedure for like 2 decades at least. Well, Trump, for his second term, decided to pick an evangelical, and not just any evangelical. Arguably the evangelical, if you were to listen to Joel C. Rosenberg, who he skyrocketed to fame when he wrote a book about terrorists, radical Islamic terrorists taking over planes and flying them into the World Trade Center. He wrote this book before 9/11, so that definitely got him some fame, some notoriety. He's never claimed to be a prophet, and he's not, obviously. But he is a Messianic Jew. He does believe in Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior. And he does run a lot of different projects, including All Israel News. I think it's allisrael.com or allisraelnews.com, whatever. He responded. He reacted. He woke up and saw the news that Mike Huckabee was coming to town again. And so he had some thoughts.
Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg for All Israel News. We'll be posting a more detailed update soon, but this is very big breaking news here over the last 24 hours or so. Pro-Israel, devout evangelical Christian Mike Huckabee being appointed by President-elect Donald Trump to be the next next U.S. ambassador to Israel. This is the first time that a devout, openly, unabashedly evangelical Christian has been appointed as ambassador to Israel from the United States. It's not that other Christians haven't been appointed over the years, but Huckabee has been here over 100 times. He leads Christian tours. He serves on the advisory board. He was the first advisory board member who signed on to All Israel News, our evangelical news site, when we started on September 1st, 2020. Huckabee and I co-led a delegation of evangelical Christian leaders to Israel last December, met with Prime Minister Netanyahu and so forth. Huckabee is just a very openly solid and devout follower of Jesus Christ, and he loves Israel and the Jewish people. So it's a big deal. Also, the fact that there hasn't been a non-Jewish ambassador appointed by the United States to Israel in about 20 years or so. So I'll have more details soon, but waking up here in Herzliya, Israel, right on the coast of the Mediterranean, after speaking at a Joshua Fund conference here. More details on that later. But from Herzliya, this is Joel Rosenberg for All Israel News.
Quick note, I gotta throw this out there. Look, I'm not a fan, and if you couldn't tell, I'm not a fan of backgrounds. Look, I've had some nice studios in the past. I intentionally, for this show, have decided that I didn't really want a background. We were even considering a plain wood background, literally just like wood planks, and that's it. I'm not a fan of not ripping on Joel here. I get it. That was a beautiful background, but it's sort of like, hey, you got a message, great, deliver the message. What did the background have to do with the message? Now, look, if you're like in a war zone and you're trying to deliver a message about the war, okay, it makes sense to have the war in the background, right? But if you're talking about, anyway, just a minor critique, not a big deal. Let's focus on Mike Huckabee. Here's a guy, okay? He was very close to getting the Republican nomination for president. Back, was it 2008? Okay. Won Iowa. He's staunch evangelical, very, very smart guy. Okay. I would say he's one of my top 10 favorite hosts to listen to. He's got a great voice. Really does have a good voice for podcasting, for television shows. I see him online. I don't even know where. Is he on TBS or TB, whatever. Point is that he's good. Former Arkansas governor, and he is a staunch ally of Israel. Now, a lot of people are going to throw out there. It's funny because if Trump had picked a Jew to be the ambassador to Israel, you'd have all the anti-Zionists screaming, "Oh my gosh! Of course, here's another Jew. Trump's going Israel first again." But it's like, okay. When I saw the Mike Huckabee thing, I was like, I wonder how they're going to react. Well. As predicted, or not by me, but as other people are saying, yeah, I see the anti-Zionist, the conservative side. I'm not talking about like the river to the sea people. I'm talking about the conservatives, and there are a lot of them, a lot of conservatives who are anti-Zionists, and I'm not one of them, by the way. But to be clear, is he anti-Zionist? Look. I get it. I understand it to some extent. I'm not like, oh my gosh, if you're an anti-Zionist, we can't be friends. I do have friends that are anti-Zionists. Okay. I guess for me, I don't care enough about any of that, anybody else. My focus is America. So Israel wants to fight. Great. They want to fight. They want to take out Hamas. They want to fight Iran. Great. They want our help? Sure, we can sell them arms. We can give them help from, with intelligence and stuff like that. They're an ally. They're our best ally in the Middle East. They're necessary to prevent the Islamic takeover of the entire region, because I think that would end up leading to the Islamic takeover of the world. That's a discussion for another day. But yeah, I mean, if they want to buy aid, great. I don't want to send them any aid, you know. I mean, not for free. Not. I don't want to send Ukraine. Pardon me, I'm getting choked up. I don't want to send Ukraine any aid. I don't want to send Taiwan any aid. I don't want to send Israel any free aid. If somebody wants to buy aid from us, great. And it's not aid; it's a transaction. We'll do business with them. Point being is that, sorry, way off track there. Point being is that I was looking at some of my friends, known anti-Zionists out there, and the response. I mean, it didn't matter. It never does matter. It's like, okay, so here's Mike Huckabee, an evangelical Christian, okay, like a pastor, minister, whatever. And it's like, oh my gosh, once again, Israel first. It's like, I mean, is there anybody? I mean, the only person that they would have accepted as the ambassador to to Israel would have been like Candace Owens, okay, or Nick Fuentes or somebody, right? Look, I got nothing against them either, okay. Just to be clear, it's to me it takes too much of our focus, I think, as a conservative movement, when we kind of we put everything. Where does somebody stand? Or are they a good conservative or a bad conservative? It always comes back to, well, are they a Zionist? Are they an anti-Zionist? Seems to be whatever. I don't get it. But anyway, Mike Huckabee, perfect choice in my humble opinion. I'll give him an A as far as the pick to be Trump's U.S. ambassador to the nation of Israel. So then we get to the big one. I know that Pete Hegseth, because of his position at Fox News, because he's sort of an easier target, I guess. The attention, but in news from this week, as far as appointments by President Trump, is the creation of the Department of Government Efficiency. And I had to my daughter got a kick out of it when I explained to her, he just created the Department of Government Efficiency. And she's like, okay, great. And I'm like, it's the Department of Government Efficiency. She's like, yeah, I get it. You keep saying that. I was like, what is that? What's the acronym? And she's like, DGE. I'm like, no, you have to include the O. And we got into a discussion about how it's the DOD and the DOJ, that for whatever reason the O in of is included when you're talking about government. Anyway, because I just want here we are, and she's like, oh, okay, I get it. And I was like, and guess who's going to run it? And she's like, Elon Musk? I'm like, yep. She's like, that's crazy. And it is. It is crazy. But it's fitting. And he's getting help. Elon Musk will be the head of the Department of Government Efficiency, and Vivek Ramaswamy will be his, assistant? I don't even know. I mean, it's not like, these guys are rich. It's not like they're sitting there, trying to earn a bigger salary. They don't care about the money aspect of it. They just want to try to fix government and make it more efficient, which is a Herculean task. We're talking about the least efficient organization in the history of mankind. We're talking about the greatest amount of waste on a daily basis. The United States government wastes more of everything, not just money. Obviously, money's the big one, but they waste more people, more resources, more time, and definitely more money in one day than most countries will waste in a year. It is obscene. And according to Elon Musk and his allies, people that are going to be working with him, they think they can trim about $2 trillion. That's a lot of money, folks. Okay, that's a lot of money. $2 trillion, that's 2 million millions. For those who don't, it's the more zeros, the harder it is to comprehend, right? He says he can shave it. He says he can cut it, and he's going to, when I say shave it, it's not like he's going to use a razor. He's going to have to take a chainsaw to it at first. and then an axe to get the rest of the chunks off. And then maybe we can get down to scalpel. I hope, the Lord willing, that we can get down to the scalpel level. The success or failure of the Department of Government Efficiency is going to come down to how empowered they are. Now, I believe, maybe this is being too hopeful, but I believe that Trump's going to give them a lot of power. I really hope that, because we're talking about people who really have no incentives here. Okay, it's not like Elon Musk. Oh my gosh, if he fails at this, he's gonna lose his day job, and what's he gonna do after that? I mean, there's no personal incentive here other than to succeed, which allows them to take risks. And right now, folks, we need risks. When it comes to cutting, I would rather overcut than undercut. Pardon me. In other words, I would rather lose some little bit of positives that maybe this department or that project or whatever is doing. I would rather lose a little bit of the positives and just get rid of all the negatives. I think the negatives in almost every department, every agency, every project that the United States government is involved in, I would say that 99% or more could be approaching 100%, 99.95% or something like that they are worthless. And that's not to say they don't have anything positive. It's that the positives are greatly outweighed by the negatives. Chop it. Okay? This could be a true shift, a true paradigm shift for this nation and thereby for the world. If they can accomplish what they need to accomplish, what they claim that they will accomplish, if they get half of it done, if they can cut $1 trillion, dude, that would be immense. That would be huge. That would be incredible. And we will feel the effects. And the effects that we feel will be positive. Far more positive than any little positives we might feel from the actions of the EPA, of the Energy Department, of the Department of Education, which right now it's already on the chopping block. Before Elon Musk is even in there, according to Trump, he's already chopping it. Okay, we'll let Elon figure out how to chop it. Let's send the Department of Education back to the states. And if it were me, I would say tell the states, not tell the states from a federal perspective, but I would want the states to say, we're going to take our state departments of education, we're going to break it apart and send it to the districts. Let the districts decide. That's what I would love. I would love that, because I do believe that education should be as localized as possible. And people are like, well, what about standards? Okay, standards would then be determined by guess who? The parents and the teachers. Why? Because they will have the choice. If we were to revamp our education system, they will have the choice to be able. The districts would have to compete against each other. Now, I'm not just talking about Friday night football games. I'm talking about academics. I'm talking about start putting out scorecards showing that this school is very good at sending children to getting them prepared for college, and this school is very good at getting their students prepared for technical trades. And this, you could start really turning our education system into something that we could use. Right now, I can't use it. Okay, I've got a young kid getting homeschooled. I've got an older adult, or not adult, but an older kid who's in charter school. My oldest children went to private schools, homeschooling, a nice combination depending on what we were doing at that time and what was happening in our lives. We've gone up and down the board, and there was unfortunately a few times where a couple of them had to go spend some time in public schools, and that was on me, and I regret it. Well, we can actually make it to where public schools are manageable again. I'm not saying that, get rid of homeschooling. That should be the ultimate intention and goal of parents. But sometimes it's not possible. And then charter schools, private schools are the alternative. Well, what if we didn't necessarily need that alternative? All I'm saying is that we can fix it. And that was way too long to spend on this. Let's take one more short break, and then I will finish off with further discussion of Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and the Department of Government Efficiency.
I'm Jonathan Rose, CEO of Genesis Gold Group. As Americans, we work hard every day to provide for our families and ensure their future. But with the uncertainty facing our economy, it is more important than ever to safeguard your wealth and protect your retirement savings. Educated investors look to safe haven assets to shield themselves from the economic storm. Tangible assets like gold and silver can provide stability, security, and most importantly, peace of mind. In 1997, the Taxpayer Relief Act allowed Americans to hold physical precious metals like gold and silver in their IRAs for the first time. Today, Genesis Gold Group helps our clients transfer existing IRAs, 401ks, and other retirement accounts into physical gold and silver, tax and penalty free. With thousands of satisfied clients, 5-star reviews, and fully accredited with the Better Business Bureau, our experienced team is here to help you navigate the process, start to finish. Now is the time to educate yourself on the importance of a diversified portfolio, including tangible assets like gold and silver. Call now to receive our free wealth protection kit and digital dollar defense guide. Call now and we'll include our extremely popular silver prepper bar free when you open your account. Add it to your IRA or have it sent to your home. Call Genesis Gold Group today at 800-200-GOLD. Prepper bar only available through Genesis Gold Group.
All right, let's go ahead and bypass talking any further about Elon Musk, because as I was on break, I saw 2 more Trump appointments. They're both huge, and let's dive right into them. Let's start with Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence. Yes, I like Tulsi as a person. There's always going to be a lingering doubt not always, but there will be a lingering doubt whenever somebody goes freshly from a Democrat to an independent to a Republican. Okay, I'm not saying that it can't happen. We saw it with Reagan. We saw it with Trump. We've seen it with Carrie Lake. We've seen it with people that we now trust. But it did take some time, and let's face it, Tulsi ran for president, wanted to run against Trump 4 years ago, okay? She's had time to see the error of her ways. I hope, and I have no reason to believe that there's any lingering, statism, because that's really the concern there. But as Director of National Intelligence, the fact that she's a non-interventionalist, the fact that she is a patriot, we know all these things. She's had bad judgment in the past as with her political affiliation, but hey, then again, who knows? Maybe she was always, more libertarian, more conservative than she let on, but because she lived in Hawaii, she had to play Democrat. I don't know what her motives were for being a Democrat, or if she has any Democrat leanings anymore. But the good news is that as Director of National Intelligence, as long as she's a patriot, as long as her heart is in the right place, and as long as she has proper judgment, which she appears to have now, proper judgment on how to use, because it's a tremendous, easily abusable position. You get a wealth of information. As DNI information, you often have more information than the president. One of her primary roles is to decipher the information, her and her team, and then present the president with the shorter version of it, basically. So it's an extremely important role, cannot be understated how important that role is. Is she capable? I believe so. Is she up to the task? Yeah. And is her heart in the right place? I believe so as well. So the question is her ideology appropriate yet? That's the only reason why I'm giving her an A-, maybe a B+. There's still, so again, it'll take a little bit of time for me to fully trust anybody who was recently a Democrat, who recently ran for president of the United States as a Democrat. And then you'll be like, what about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? That's different, and he hasn't even been announced yet, but that's different because if he stays in his lane of health, look, if your quote-unquote Democrat views about health might be Republican views about health. Like it's not political, okay? It really does come down to the actual science, right? So as long as he stays in that making America healthy again lane, he could still be a Democrat for all I care. Just stay out of the other stuff. And Trump has mentioned it many times. Just don't mess with the oil. Don't mess with the oil. Well, I don't want him to mess with anything other than health. Okay, let's get food, natural, regenerative farming, kill the jabs, all that stuff. Great. Get the fluoride out of the water. Awesome. Republican, Democrat, I don't care. Okay. With DNI, it is a little bit different. So we'll go with a B+ for Tulsi. Potential for an A right there. We'll see. Just have trust issues. And then the big one from the day, Attorney General. We've had the worst attorneys general for 2 decades. I mean, the worst possible conceivable attorneys general for really longer than that. 3 decades. Yeah, 3 decades. Wow. 3 decades of horrible attorneys general. Well, that changed today. Representative Matt Gaetz has been announced as the Attorney General, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. I don't need to tell you. Okay, I'm not going to try to convince you that he's a good attorney, because the Attorney General doesn't have to be a good attorney. The Attorney General has to surround themselves with great attorneys, and they have to have a desire to do what's best for the country. And I don't think anybody would question. They might say, well, but he went against McCarthy, and he's been going against the wrong people, and he whatever. I disagree. You can make that argument, but I do believe that. Other than, you might say, well, I guess the only complaint you might have is that he's a showboat. Guess what? I want an attorney general who's a showboat. After what we've been through for the last 4 years, after what Donald Trump has been through for the last 4 years, I want somebody who's aggressive. I want somebody who's happy and angry at the same time. You want to see a joyful warrior? Matt Gaetz, as Attorney General, is a joyful warrior. At least that's what I hope he'll be. I'm going to go ahead and give this one an A+. Not just because I like Matt Gaetz, but because the bar that has been set for attorneys general over the last 3 decades is so low. He's going to go fly way over the bar. Okay, like he's not even going to. It's just pick your favorite analogy and apply it here, because Matt Gaetz as Attorney General, that's winning. Lord willing, I'll be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, y'all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless. Whether you've been a prepper for a long time, or maybe you're just getting started, you're just looking around and thinking how crazy it is, we usually cover the basics. You get your food, you get your water, you get your ammunition. Don't forget your ammo. You get your battery chargers, solar battery chargers, or whatever. But a lot of times I think people will forget their meds. Okay, whether it's chronic meds, antibiotics, I think a lot of people don't even realize that you can stock up on that stuff. They go to the doctor, they go to the pharmacy, and the pharmacist said, oh, here's your 2-month supply or whatever. Well, you can actually stock up on a lot of these meds by going to jdrucker.com/meds. You'll talk to the good folks over at Jace Medical. They can get you a 12-month supply of certain prescription drugs. They can get you emergency meds, all sorts of good stuff, things that you may or may not need, but it's always good to have it on hand, because I guarantee you, even if you don't think you need it today, you might need it in the future. jdrucker.com/